today about transformative local initiatives and how we start the peace building process in an urban environment. In 2020, Lucia mentioned that we already introduced Peace Garden Wuppertal, where we started first peace science in an urban environment combined with transformation process. Now, after 3 years later, we continue with Competence Centre for Peace. And we will speak more details. Asli and Andreu will give more details about this initiative, what we are ongoing. So Peace Garden Wuppertal is new forms of dialogue for peaceful, just and sustainable change. We have now a website. It's just fresh.
Yeah, so everyone can actually look at the website while Burcu is presenting via the slides.
Yes, yes, perfect.
So we are a group of peace seekers. We are pioneer group and volunteers who can advance social innovation and macro structural changes for a common future. We started this in Wuppertal as a collective initiative with several actors like Wuppertal Institute, with communities, art scenes like free art scene or open house or such kind of diverse actors. And we first came and met in an eye level and discussed which kind of a future we want to, where we want to live together and how we can build in between us trust. Because this was the first step to create a dialogue. And of course, the committing to open, resilient, and gender equitable societies and human rights, defending liberal and participative democracies and social participation, freedom of science and of the press, tackling disinformation, promoting the digital order and digital progress, what we fight for. This needs a co-working process, and it's growing. This Competence Centre for Peace is new, and Asli and Andreu will speak about their experiences and how we also now convert peace works into the urban spaces. You can see in this website that which kind of challenges we have and what we are working for and what is our proposals, like interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, to foster peaceful, just, inclusive societies, free from fear and violence, micro-level peace-building methods, inclusiveness, and transparency. We already also the world. I don't want to use too much negative words today because we need positive and constructive thinking. We already gained a lot over the last years. We did great jobs together. We did in the art scene a lot of changes we managed. In Peace Garden, for instance, when science to practice side, when you can see the story of the Peace Garden, how we start to work with the marginalized groups. And the story which we wrote about creating Peace Garden has already been published, one of the important institute, Georg Ecker Institute, as a new transformative education method. Or when we continue a bit in the website, in the media, you will see also the policy brief for G7, which has been published in 2022. It is the first policy brief with evidence base, which proves also the kind of implementation, how we can make it convert it to a policy brief. Or we got volunteer award, the Germany's volunteers award. Or like in this website, you can see all this contribution of new education methods, new approaches for peace, or new creative thinking way of in the urban environment. So just I want to give now the room for my peace worker friends. They will speak about more detail how they contribute with their peace knowledge and peace action for a sustainable and just future. Now, Andreu, would you please introduce yourself and continue to also speak about how peace building works in an urban environment?
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you very much, Burcu, for the introduction and the words you have for the explanation of what we do in urban context. I will add now 5 cents. To be very clear, I will not introduce every term we use in the slides, for example, like silent diplomacy. If anyone has questions, you can ask these questions after the presentation. I just want to speed up and make sure we understand that the forms in which we intervene are many. So first of all, we do this silent diplomacy in 6 languages, which we do on a global level. And we do it on the local and the glocal and the transnational and international level. Then it is that we inform politics on the creation of peace. And for every term you can find, let's say, links to the internet where you see how we do it and where we do it. And we mainly discuss prevention and the remediation of conflict, because we simply think that trauma levels have to go down precisely to enhance cooperation in urban context. We also do sanctioning of politics, and this must be done because the discussions are open, which implies that, for example, that when you have a meeting with the ministers of social affairs in Europe, in Brussels, and you are in this meeting, you have to speak up and you clearly have to take position. So, it's like there is no in between, there is no gray zone, there is no opportunism possible in that subject. Then we interact permanently in civil society with educational and art programs. And this is very important because it happens at all levels: institutional, private, in schools, in kindergarten, and also on an international level. Like the Muse Stiftung does it for music and for the people who are, let's say, socially weaker. We do it also in the context of the arts, with painting, with doing ceramics with the children, etc. Then what is very important is the communication of peace methods in the media. And this is very difficult because the media are not used to the peace language. So, for example, peace media ask for results. They don't like it when peace mediators talk about a process. It takes them... Somebody said that he's not understanding me. Is everybody understanding?
Yes, please go
okay,
ahead.
Then it's good.
Please,
okay.
Yes.
Then we educate for peace, for example, at universities, but also on the level of popular schools, like in Germany, for example, the Volkshochschule. And then we don't do it just in one city, but we go with one program and we educate people in 20, in 30 cities in 2 years. Yeah, and we do it with a steady program. And then we educate at schools, which is, in terms of creating long-term artistic projects, which then are visible in the city. And this is, in my understanding, the most, let's say, efficient and the best way to communicate peace. Just for the communication, it's not about the interaction. The interaction is a complex process. But when we do a project like this, which lasts, let's say, 2 years, and this is what I would like to explain a little bit more. So when we do a project like this in a school where we do a mural, we do with them an art piece, which then has, 20 or 30 meters length. And it's done with the children with, I did it, for example, in the city of Marl with 99 children. And they came, out of 90 different countries. And what was this project about? It was about creating an identity for the 90 children coming from 90 countries, so that they found a way to work together, to feel solidarity for each other, to express together, and to do it publicly. And this project was very interesting because we did it with the historical context of which all the children came, which was that they, for example, told us 90 different fables and tales which come from their cultures. And then they spent almost a year in the classes, in 3 classes with 33 children. They spent almost a year drawing scenes out of these fables. And then the next step was that I sat down with the teachers and we had a huge complexity of stories and drawings. And we had to find a way to channel all this into one story that was the story of these 99 children. And this story was then, first of all, discussed with the teachers, where my role as a moderator was to suggest, let's say a continuity which came out of the pictures of the children. So the children provided with the source through their drawings. And what I did is that I chose some drawings that would give us an idea of what the final product could be, but I didn't speak it out. So I let the teachers do it. And then the teachers managed, through the pictures I was giving and few hints, few questions which I was putting, they managed to create a whole story that provided for them with an identity. And because one of the problems is, for example, confusion. One of the problems is complexity. One of the problems at large is how people who feel very distant from each other can pull together and feel closer to each other. And this is not something that is done quickly. It's not done in 2 days. It's a process. This is why it took 2 years. So 2 years of preparing, 2 years of drawing, 2 years of discussing. And then in the last year, I did the work with the children. And the work was first to draw the fable, the new fable, on a paper sheet that was about 25 meters long. So we spent 3 months drawing with pencils. When all the figures were finished, we had to repeat several sequences, so it's a process. And when this process of the draft was finished, the children started doing some of the elements with me in ceramics, in clay. And after doing this process in clay, we managed to fire it, etc. So the result was that we have, after a 2-year process, a project that embellishes the city, provides with identity, and is a source of inspiration for the entire neighborhood and cooperation and for solidarity among the people. And now I would like to give back to Burcu and Asli.
Photos about what he mentioned here. We can see
Exactly.
also photos, and also peace bench and sidewalk talks. Also one of the implementation what we can do also in the during the peace building processes. We also implemented in Wuppertal Peace Road in with the diverse identities. We walk together to create dialogue. It's a kind of an urban dialogue. While walking and talking and creating trust and making empathy. So we are now transforming many kind of tools and theoretical and also methodological scientific works to urban context. Here, Asli, it's for your side.
Yes, thank you, Burcu. It's definitely a pleasure to be here with people that are working at the grassroots actually for urban transformation, while we need it definitely for peaceful coexistence. I mean, there is not a lot to add actually in terms of what can be done, because all the concepts have actually been communicated very well in Burcu's and Andreu's presentation, but I can maybe add the idea of, let's say, co-creation, dialogue, and empathy through micro-level action, which, you know, you saw in the earlier slide, a peace bench that was an awarded idea, and that goes far back to post-Second World War period, where people actually did not want to live in their own homes isolated, but wanted to go out and just have a chat with their neighbors in the sidewalk to just get over the trauma together in the neighborhood. So at micro level, so that there would be this, let's say, new well-being project for the whole community, but this would arise from the neighborhoods themselves. And so from that idea on, you know, this awarded peace bench idea and the sidewalks idea that was also developed post-Vietnam War period in the US, in especially the Midwest, where it was most necessary because there were a lot of soldier recruitment back in the US. We tried this idea actually right after our peace petition. I'm a member of the Academics for Peace Network. And so there has been this very, very, you know, hard and devastating times after the military coup, well, fake military coup in Turkey back in 2016, and let's say, military action towards the Kurdish lands and Kurdish zones, or also the Kurdish civil society, was at its peak back in that period, starting from 2014. And so we just tried this project in our own neighborhoods in Turkey, where we lived, and also where the Kurdish zones were, where the community was most, let's say, affected and impacted. And interestingly enough, this was already there, but you know, just speaking about it, forming it into dialogue was actually very significant for the people living there. And we had a lot of wonderful turnout from the neighborhoods. And so this dialogue process started happening for people, for vulnerable communities, also for diverse communities, including, let's say, children and women, because, you know, these people are actually spending more time in their homes and not really having the ability to perform this dialogue back in schools or, you know, other places they're in. So in a way, this sidewalk talk idea became a third space where people could share their pain and also co-create together. If we can go to the next slide, I'll try to connect this idea to how, you know, speaking on the dialogue more globally, it's hard to evade from negative thoughts, basically. And so, you know, bringing that to Bruno Latour's idea of transforming critical zones to transformative spaces is interesting, when he actually also had to postpone his exhibition back in Karlsruhe, ZKM, due to the pandemic. But at the same time, he thought, well, if I wait for the pandemic to end, this is going to probably take a whole decade. And so why not try to hold the exhibition the best way we can, despite the pandemic, and work with the students in the university who cannot really go there physically. And so this is how it became a digital observatory, as well as things happening physically, as much as the pandemic allowed, actually. And I was really impressed by the things happening there, because what you could do would be, without even going to the museum, to visit the museum, you could actually do almost 100% tour of what was taking place there. And it was basically arising some kind of global action towards the ecological devastation happening in the whole world. And also the pandemic, you know, rising that awareness in the whole community, and also in the grassroots communities, with also, let's say, the self-help and peer support that was building up. And so this idea to carry this further to transformative spaces of dialogue and peace is very important, and also, you know, to evade from the idea of negative peace, which is on the side of governments, because even when governments talk about pacifism, or pacifist peaceful coexistence, it's really more negative peace. It's through, let's say, political governance, even ideological governance of the leading powers that be. And so we're talking about also through the Peace Garden, we're actually talking about more of taking this on the more positive side by the, let's say, action or active involvement of the communities, of their own needs and desires for what can happen. And this is an example of what Energy Peace Partners are doing. So our also one of the major goals in the, let's say, Urban Peace Garden project, and also the website, and as well as, of course, building that up to the Competence Centre for Peace, is allying with wonderful projects that are already at hand towards achieving peace globally, but more of micro level action. And that's why we're also interested in this group, since the group is also aiming sustainable transformation at the micro level, at local level to begin with, because there's a lot we can do at local level, and it also prevents us from being hopeless, basically. And so I'm not going to take too much time from you, because I really want to discuss together. This is basically how crowdsourcing urban sustainability can happen. But again, at local level, you know, also with the support, of course, of local governance, the municipalities, because municipalities, we think, you know, as a group, as the Peace Worker Collaborative, is also the kind of structure that we can work with while we're dismantling the hegemonic structures or the structural discrimination that's happening more at the macro level, basically, or from, let's say, the toxic governments, coming from toxic governments. And so, yes, this is it, and it'd be